Can you see the screen? Okay, let's try one more time if this movie works. So let me try to play. Do you see the play works? My cursor moves. Do you see? Raise your hand. No? Okay. Sorry, we have to keep this way. Not the most efficient, but that should be okay. So now, let's discuss our grading of tests. So how many of you have heard from your relative friends who died of cancer? How many of you have heard the experience? Okay. Oh, so, okay. Yeah, not everyone. That means you guys are pretty young. I have lost my friend from pancreatic cancer 2 years ago. Okay, and also there are when you get older or you talk to more of your parents and grandparents, you'll hear this is the top killer. So from what I know is in Korea, I think in lifetime for female in the US, 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 8 will get breast cancer. Okay, and for lifetime cancer incidence is for male 1 out of 2. So half of you will actually face cancer in your life. Female 1 out of 3. So I just want to tell you how important this topic is. Okay, so let's discuss about now grading cancer. So as we know, colon cancer, so we screen, we go to see even small polyps are there or not, and so we can find the polyp. And then, sometimes people, depending on people, someone has a lot more polyps than the other. So when we find the polyp, usually we take it out because even if it's not cancer yet, we better to remove them. Why? Because the polyp, when it grows into stage 3, you see it starts to invade. So there are the layers of colon which we already learned from mucosa, which is where epithelium and secretes mucus. So this is luminal site mucosa, and that basement membrane and down there's a submucosa where you can see blood vessel and lymphatic vessels are available there. Okay, and then of course for peristaltic movement we know that there are 2 kinds of muscle layers. One is longitudinal, the other is circumferential muscle, and then the outer part is called serosa. Of course. Okay, so here.
교수님.
네?
교수님, 지금 이 수업 자료가 베이스캠프에 업로드가 안 되어 있어서.
네네네. Okay. That's true. Okay, yeah, I will upload it right now so that you guys may have it right away. Okay, I just posted it, so maybe sorry about that. I forgot to post it. But okay, let's move on. If you can download right now, that is also fine. So once it's metastasized, a favorable place for colon cancer is in fact liver. You guys remember from physiology, all the mesenteric vessels collect the nutrient from the colon. The first site it goes to liver. You remember that is a vein, hepatic portal vein goes together with hepatic artery, so the liver can actually face the most nutrient directly from this gut. And that's somehow relevant. Colon cancer metastasis to liver. This is an example from surgical site. You see the flower-like, white flower-like metastasis lodging in the liver of the patient. So now I brought this colon cancer staging. Okay, so there's a famous name, TNM staging, standing for T for tumor, number of tumor, and lymph node involved. So you see there's a nearby lymph node. There's a depiction that cancer cells are here inside the lymph node. So that's nearby lymph node called the lymphatic lymph node metastasis. Okay, so that TNM and M, of course, means metastasis. Here I show the example for colorectal cancer. Stage 1, how do we define stage 1? Tumor, either 1 or 2 tumors are found, but no lymph node, no metastasis. And why do we try to stage 1, 2, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 3C? Because your treatment plan might have to be different for most optimal treatment. But more important, you can see 5-year survival rate. So let's say, oh, my uncle got diagnosed with colon cancer. Then SK people like you would ask, what was the stage? Because that stage determines 5-year survival rate. Luckily, he got stage 1 cancer. Oh my gosh, thank you. In 5 years, I'll be able to see you in 93% of the time. Okay. What about stage 2? Means more number of tumor, we define stage 2. What about stage 3? Not only multiple tumors, but if you find any of single lymph node metastasis, it's a local metastasis, then we call it stage 3. And you see, still pretty high survival ratio. But here comes the important question that higher stage over here, you say tumor stage, any tumor. We don't care the number of tumors. Here, lymph node. We don't care any lymph node metastasis. We do not care. Why? If you find any of distant metastasis, M1, you find, let's say, bone metastasis, you find a lung metastasis, you find any of this, then it doesn't really matter how many tumors and lymph nodes are here found, no matter what, we don't care. Why? You look at this 5-year survival ratio, it's now below 10%, which means once in metastasis, 5 years after, there's a little chance you will see the patient again. That's the reality of why the staging is so important. So TNM staging is to determine the disease stage. Stage means the measure of the extent of the disease so that we can guide management and determine, this is terminology, that predicted course of a disease. Let me ask this question to, let's say, Jonghyun, I cannot see your face very well. Jonghyun. Yes, can you predict what this is? To determine the predicted course of the disease. Okay, that we call prognosis. Okay, so this is why do we do this staging? Because we want to know how long the patient will survive. We want to know what would be the optimal treatment so that to maximize the survival. Okay, and prognosis is already determined courses of the disease, and you have to know properly so that you can do the best optimal treatment. Okay, so let me ask another question. Metastatic colorectal cancer, then what is the stage? Shukla? Yeah. Always stage. It's a number. You can look at this table. Okay, so as I explained here, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. If there's any metastasis found, you don't care anything. It's always stage number 4. Yes. So this is the only thing you want to remember at least. Okay. So this demonstrates how devastating metastasis is. It happens to 4 is actually bad number in Korean or Chinese character. It's meaning the death, okay, in terms of number. So we don't even have like sometimes 4 in the hotel elevator. You don't find the 4. But anyway, the point is metastasis is a devastating key that once it happens, you see the 5-year survival rate can be very low. So before reaching to this, you want to actually do something and hopefully, but unfortunately, we don't have a metastasis preventive drug yet. Okay, so now with this staging and diagnosis, I want to cover how do we treat. So we found the cancer, hopefully not too late. What's the treatment? As I said, there's 3 ways of treatment: surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. So these 3, I want to first talk about surgery. Okay, so cancer treatment, number 1, surgery, and especially nowadays, we care about our cosmetic and we try to make a surgery as less invasive as possible. Okay, so for that example, especially in biomedical engineering environment, laparoscopic surgery. So in the past, so my friend who got appendicitis has a big incision like this. But now we don't do that anymore. Okay, we make 3 small holes. So through this belly button, okay, and that goes to a camera and lightning, and through this panty lining, so the minimizing the scars and stuff. So these 2 points, you insert tools of surgical tools. Okay, so that's why it shows. So what we do with surgery, we want to cut out the tumor cell that we call surgical resection. Okay, so surgical treatment for cancer we call resection. That means surgeon removing tissue containing malignant cells. You cannot remove only cancer cells. It's microscopic cell. Okay, so you do need some margin of the cell containing tissue. So a general rule for cancer surgeon is you have this like pyramidal shape of a margin. So if it's lower, you can take a lot more margin so that you will be safe. But when it goes to top, such as face or brain, you can't take too much margin out. Okay, so that's also a trade-off and problem, right? So depending on the location and stage of the cancer, of course, stage matters as well. Surgery can be different. So depending on the place, for example, skin surgery, much easier because you have access outside. What about pancreatic cancer? Pancreas is attaching backside of your stomach. So it's actually hard to reach. I don't think it's very easy to do with a laparoscopic surgery with a pancreas, full pancreas. So when you do it properly, you probably have to have open belly surgery for that. So laparoscope is the name meaning abdomen. So it's abdomen or pelvis. It's a good choice and it's pretty good because laparo means flank of the body. Okay. And surgery again. Endoscopic surgery. So now I think this is a more like boom because no patient wants to have a big scar on their belly. Okay, so example of cancer surgery, for example, like, hey, we found the colon cancer, let's say stage 3 found here. What we do is usually resect take the part of the colon out and then rejoin. Okay, so for this we can do the same minimally and invasive. So even endoscopic surgery can be done. And I already showed the actual feature, but this is good part I can explain. This is the real endoscope, and you already saw the tip is flexible. I think Sung-Young asked me about how this works, endoscope before, flexible. We actually use a mechanical cables on the side. So two cables to the changing this tension, we can actually flip this, the tip shape, okay? And then the other part, flip this. It's still very mechanical. So that means it actually have a lot of repair, and there's some mechanical problem also happens for that. And here is a controller part, and even eyepiece you can actually see, observe. But typically now this one goes to directly to the monitor. And there's a supporting part for light, air, and water. So light, you know, the electricity has to provide for this lamp, and also air. You know, colons also, you know, internal organ usually when unnecessary it's collapse. For viewing, you have to inflate. So we give a CO2 gas to keep inflating the colon so that you can actually navigate, see it well, and also water to clean up the part of this camera in front. And of course, this is flexible, but there are rigid endoscopy as well. So now, let me move on. So this is surgery at first. One of the important part of surgery is cancer treatment is surgery, but second is radiation. So to me, like radiation was a little weird because it doesn't look like very well understood. But when I talked to radio oncologist, what he said is, hey, radiation is very important because almost 2/3 of all cancer patients go through radiation therapy. See how important it is? So radiation treatment is cancer treatment with using radiation, but not just radiation, it's called ionizing radiation. And what is ionizing radiation? It's having, you know, photons, but with a very high energy that when it hits an atom, it actually took off the valence electron to make this an charged ions. And these charged molecules are very reactive, meaning that it can actually interact with the nearby DNA and then cause DNA mutation. So, you know, when DNA goes wrong, the cells are automatically supposed to die. Or, however, we have a normal repair mechanism. Okay, normal cells have a good repair mechanism. While cancer cells, they're like just busy to proliferate. So they don't have very good repair mechanism. That the idea is you shine the radiation, hopefully for tumor tissue, but there's always normal tissue around before and after. And the hope is, and generally, the cells die, but normal cells die a little less. That's the key idea. Okay, so cancer treatment with the use of ionizing radiation to focus at the site of cancer to damage and kill those malignant cells. So radiation is by nature, it's a local treatment like surgery as well, versus the other kind of treatment is a systemic therapy, such as chemotherapy. Systemic therapy is like drug treatment that, you know, our circulation, it reaches throughout the body cells. And while radiation is local. Okay, when you read the New York Times, or when you read the literature, because many of your research will eventually involve with cancer, what you will hear is actually the real treatment is combined therapy. And you will hear about adjuvant therapy or neoadjuvant therapy. So I want to explain what this means. So radiation is very effective. Once you shine it, within several days, the cells start to die out, okay? So, and radiation is usually combined with other surgery or chemotherapy. So, adjuvant therapy, adjuvant means augmented or helping, okay? So, what it means is, let's say you do surgery. Let's say I have done pancreatic surgery, and you believe you take out most, but you don't know how many remnants cancer cells are there. That's most of the time what it happens. That's why the death rate for pancreatic cancer is over 97%. Okay. So when after your surgery, you want to make sure the remaining cancer cells to die. So you come afterward, you shine radiation to that local surgical site to help the surgery. That's we call adjuvant therapy. Use radiation as an adjuvant therapy. Okay. There are other cases you can ask, hey, wait a second, how about giving radiation before surgery? So there are times, if the tumors are big enough and it's hard to do surgical resection, then we actually do this. We shine radiation to that tumor area, then it's very effective. Even a couple of days sooner, the tumor shrink. And then it's easier for surgeon to get in to resect. That case we call neoadjuvant therapy. Neo means like new. So you use radiation first to shrink the tumor before occurring surgery or chemotherapy. Okay, so hopefully this terminology makes sense for you. So how ionizing radiation actually work as a radiation treatment, because radiation with enough energy to eject electrons from electrically neutral atoms, and that free electron damage the cell, especially damaging, let's say, Jibom.
Yes, Professor.
Yeah, these free electrons will damage especially which part of the cell? 3 letters. Okay, sorry. Yeah, DNA. Because DNA is damaged, the cells cannot replicate, the cells cannot survive. Okay. And this part we call radiobiology, and I think Suhyun already showed the today the question of Anhyuk's question. Radiation can cause cancer, but why are we using radiation as a therapy? Because once you find cancer, you want to kill the cancer first. Okay. Oops, Yumin is doing something. Hey, Yumin, I cannot see your face. Okay. So there's a Suhyun showed a gray over here. Okay. Now radiation therapy, you do need a unit. You guys should be quantitative. So how will you define the amount of energy for radiation? It's very easy to think of. Energy level joule per unit mass. Okay, joule per unit kilogram would be the best. And then you always put someone's name who are the pioneer of the field. In this case, English radiobiologist called Louis H. Gray. So we use the unit of radiation as gray or GY. It's not like gray color gray, it's GRAY. Okay. And here, actually, let me see. You mean you need to clean up this? Let's annotation clear all drawings. Okay. So here comes a question. Hey, radiation kills any cells. Okay, but tumor cells cannot repair very well. So that's a point. Let's see. So we have to devise a wide way of doing radiation treatment. So here's a very important piece of data. X-axis is total dose of gray, and Y-axis surviving cell fraction. radiation is damaging DNA, so the effect is more like accumulative. That's why we prevent to being exposed to radiation, because to prevent our cancer, potential chance of getting cancer. So let's, for example, surviving fraction, this is for normal cell, let's say 10 gray. Like when you do experiment with the animal, you actually use this radiation to actually deplete all the bone marrow. Bone marrow, for example, you want to do bone marrow transplantation, you actually shine a huge gray of radiation to mice, and then it depletes, it kills all the bone marrow cells so that you can actually transplant another animal ones. Okay, so this 10 gray, when you shine it one time, how many will survive? Look at this number, 1%. Okay, so if you give 10 gray, 1% of even normal cells will survive. 99% will die. So this is a big problem. You want to cure cancer, but you don't want to kill as many normal cells. So people have done study. How about, so using this radiation, how can we wisely utilize for maximizing cancer killing, minimizing normal cell surviving? And the answer lies in spatial temporal control of the radiation. So let's think about timing first. What if you give 10 gray into a half, 5 dose twice, because it accumulates total 10 gray, and then now you look at this, let's say 0.5. Surviving ratio is fraction is a point, so 0.05. Okay, so much more surviving. So if you divide the dose and not only in one time, you give one time and second time and third time, n times. For example, 32 times you divide the dose, and then you will find out normal cells, 10% will survive. That's like, this 1% to 10 times higher normal cell survival rate, while tumor cells will be more likely to die. So that's an idea how to deliver radiation. So how to deliver radiation to as many cancer cells as possible while having minimal effect on the normal tissue. Because radiation is so strong that if you have cancer, it passes through before and after, there gotta be normal cells, okay? So this is an idea that, for example, we give radiation to prostate cancer. You don't want to shine too much that pass through anus, then it'll become a big problem because GI tract is like, they're very susceptible for the radiation therapy, especially there's a higher cell turnover ratio. So you want to adjust the, the timing of the dose. This is the key concept, and we call this as a dose fractionation. Does it make sense? Okay. I think I have to go a little accelerate. So splitting total amount of delivered radiation in a number of doses is an idea. What about the second idea? I said spatial temporal. Temporal, now spatial. You want to focus the dose only to the tumor tissue. That's an idea. And a simple one I want to say, let's say prostate cancer, you actually create a radiation seed. That's a tiny seed. It includes a ionizing radiation. So a lead market, but this is a radioisotope. And you just give it to the prostate. You insert it into prostate as many times because of the cancer arising from the prostate. And then this one only have exert the radiation range very nearby. So this will helpful, but it must be looks painful. Here, look at this, how it works. So you have a patient, and this is anus, and you give an ultrasound to observe in real time whether you are inserting this seed proper location, and you give this a X-ray, then it will show because there's a lead over here to marker to do it right. And unfortunately, you see one lead is in the elsewhere here. So I don't know what to do with this, but this way you localize the radiation. So that we call focusing radiation dose, focusing those only tumor and not avoid to normal tissue elsewhere. So that we call in Greek short distance, meaning brachy. So we call it as a brachytherapy, short distance. So implanting radioactive material, we call it seeds, into or near the tumor, such as here, like prostate. And